Hello, this is Inside the Press Box with Sunil Sunder Raj for the Everyday Fan Sports. I'm happy to be speaking with Zoran Milich, the head coach of the Montgomery High School varsity football team. Coach Milich, thank you so much time for for speaking to me this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sunil. This is a great opportunity to talk to you about our program, and I really appreciate you inviting me on.
Hey, before we came on there, we had a long discussion. We talked about, of course, your success, here with the program. I said building it, from the ground up. You've done absolutely a tremendous job there at Montgomery High School. Heading into this season, I guess I have to ask you right out the bat. You're not that far away from, of course, the 2021 regular season opener here, Coach Milich. Just what your impressions have been of this team and. What do you foresee, said again for this upcoming year here?
Well, one thing, every year you get to start with a new team, even though you're returning most of the kids except for seniors, but it's never the same team. We graduated a lot of seniors, so we came back with hardly any varsity starters. So it's a young, inexperienced team, but they're such a pleasure to coach. Like they do what they're supposed to do. The only thing they haven't done is gotten experience, right? And the only way you get experience by playing in the game. So, my perception of this team is, as the season goes on, I think we're going to get a lot better as these guys become more varsity ready, because we're asking them to come up from the JV. And I think we have three guys on, three returning starters on offense and four on defense. And one of them is actually changing from corner to free, which is really entirely different position in our scheme of things. So, we have a lot of new faces and a lot of eager faces, and a lot of them are juniors. So it's exciting to see how these guys, develop as players.
Yeah, there are a couple of guys, of course, starting I think with your quarterback Alex Benitez. If you want to talk about Alex and how much he's grown, said in this program throughout the years, has put up some really great numbers here. Coach Milich, can you just talk about Alex?
Yeah, I mean Alex is really a running back, and the first play last year to open up the season, our starting quarterback dislocated his wrist on the second play.
Okay.
We really didn't have any other quarterbacks. We took our best athlete. We put him back there. He's got a real strong arm. So one of the things that Alex did last year, which is a testament to him, he was able to throw the deep balls, but he struggled on the shorter throws, and that's all mechanics. Your footwork, your timing, and there are things he really didn't practice that because he'd been starting as a running back his freshman year. So this offseason, he's really worked on the shorter routes, the timing routes. Yes, he's got a big arm. In the spring he threw the javelin 170 feet. He really doesn't practice it. Really, he just picks it up and throws it. It was kind of like what he did with football last year as a quarterback, was just throwing it. Now he has a much better understanding. Preseason, I think he's much more dangerous this year because, he can beat you with his arm right now. And, obviously he's always a threat to run.
Yeah. There are a couple more players. I think Brandon Fury, Andre Suleiman, Mark Jenkins, Jalen McDaniel, David Walsh, Liam McManus, and Gabe Acott. There are a couple more players there. Wanted to highlight. I said I think altogether 13 seniors I was counting on one of the sites on this year's team. But if you want to talk about some of the players and if there are any that have left out, Coach, that you really point to as being critical towards the success and having a winning record this year.
All right. Well, let's start with Brandon Fury. Brandon's center nose guard. He's committed to Marist already. I know NJ.com listed him as one of the top 10 offensive linemen. I think he's the 61st best or top player in the top 75 or whatever in the state. So, he's an impact player on both sides of the ball. One of the things I knew he'd be good at nose guard because he didn't play that position last year, but so far preseason, he's really good at it. He's much better than I knew he was going to be good, but he's better than good. So, Brandon's really the guy who's calling all the blocking schemes. He's pretty much, the emotional leader there. Just like Alex, we got to have, Brandon on the field. Without him, we lose a lot with him on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Coach.
I was going to talk about Andre Suleiman.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Next, right? So Andre's an impact player at defensive end. He's
Yeah.
very difficult to block. Most people have to double team him. He's looking at some place, he's another guy looking at colleges at FCS. He is looking at West Point. But what we did with Andre, we've now moved him to what we call our quick guard, and he's done a great job with that. So he's actually, we thought he'd be good at it. He's better than what we thought he was going to. So far in the preseason, he's another key player. But he's such an impact player on defense. Whereas Benitez is really, he's the offense. Everything stems from him. Defensively, Andre Sumilon sets the tone for our defense, especially on our defensive line.
Okay.
Go ahead. I was going to say the other guy on the defensive line, Jalen McDaniel, and Jalen's been a 3-year starter. Jalen's another guy. Between him, Brandon, and Andre, I think they make a great defensive line, one of the better defensive lines in the state. Public school wise, I would say. Jalen brings the speed and again the veteran ability. He's been there for 3 years now. So those front three really kind of give us. That's probably the strongest unit on our whole team is that defensive line.
Yeah. I was looking at this schedule. Of course, at Washington Hills Regional September 2nd, then followed by at Linden, Woodbridge home, then three consecutive road games, Coach, at Colonia, at North Hunterdon, at Franklin, home to Scotch Plains Fenwood, then home to Kennedy Memorial, and then at Cranford. So I guess you just want to talk about, how this schedule, pans out this season for you.
It's very, it's a very tough schedule, obviously.
Yeah.
We'll start with, right now our biggest focus is Watchung Hills.
Yeah.
Which is on September 2nd at our place. It's a Thursday night.
Okay.
And the way I've always done it is, if you start looking at the whole schedule,
yeah,
you can get overwhelmed. You start worrying about things that really aren't in your control.
Yeah.
The only thing we worry about, we try, again, this is a Greg Schiano thing. We're playing 1-game seasons. Take care of what's in front of you. Okay. You can't worry about next week. Next week's next week. A lot of things can happen before September 2nd. So our focus right now has been, really on us to get better. After we have our game scrimmage, our focus 100% will be on Watchung Hills. Okay. Right now our focus has been, even in our scrimmages, it's been on us for us to get better. We can't worry about it. We have to take care of ourselves. So cleaning up our mistakes, from scrimmages in practice. We film every practice like mostly everyone else does. So we try to work that and go over the film before we even step out on the football field. And if we can improve from the day before, that's all we ask for. If we can do that, we're going to be in a good situation at some point of the season.
Yeah. And I don't want to forget, of course, about your coaching staff as well. Said your assistants there, what they've meant to you. I know this past year, so before we came on the air, this COVID-19 pandemic, how challenging it has been. I know for you personally, it said last season, it was very difficult. If you want to talk about that, I was reading, it said you had to undergo emergency surgery. Coach Milich, can you talk about how good it is to, here to get back, of course, to some sort of sense of normalcy here, and hopefully having a full season here under your belt, Coach Milich?
Yeah, I can't say enough about my staff. Sean Carty, he's our offensive coordinator, and Brian Santinelli is our defensive coordinator. And I really don't have to look over their shoulders. They are really professional in how they approach things. They're excellent teachers. They're both in our building, which helps as well too. And the rest of my staff, basically everybody but two of the guys are in the building, and one's right down the road, and one's a former player of mine. So, just like the rest of my staff, I have Chris Simon, who's in our social studies department with me, does a great job with our receivers and DBs. I got Mark Probaka, who's our head freshman coach. Mark's been a head coach. He's been an offensive coordinator for ours. He's down there with the freshmen because we really don't have a feeder system, which is really, it's tough on our kids with the development standpoint. So Mark's down there because he's a tremendous teacher, and he knows football doesn't matter what offense, defense. I have him there. I got Joe Riccardi. He's in the building. He's running our JV program, and I don't have to ask these guys to do anything. They do it. I have Danny Aguilar, former offensive lineman, former all-conference player up at Montclair State. Danny's our line coach. He runs the offense on JV. Again, he breaks down film. These guys just go and do what they're supposed to do. I don't have to ask them to do it. I have a newcomer on the staff, and DJ McHugh, and DJ's been awesome. He's been down there with the freshmen, young guy. All I heard was great things about him, and you don't have to ask him; he does it. So, all these guys on the staff, all of them except for DJ were with me last year. And last year, I had to leave. I had an emergency surgery situation. I was out for about a month, and really Sean Carty took the lead of the program. Did a tremendous job. They started out 0-2, lose opening night against a very Hillsborough team, playing his brother and his father, coaching against them. And then your starting quarterback, who's a good quarterback, dislocates his wrist on the second play. And now you want to talk about, reacting to things that weren't planned beforehand. I'm out, the quarterback's out, and then they had to play Phillipsburg the next week, and now they're 0-2, and then they won 2 in a row. By the time I came back, they were 2-2. We rallied the troops. So these guys, when I was out, I didn't bother. Like I needed to be focused on my recovery, and I didn't need, I stayed out of it basically for the most part. Sean Carty would let me know certain things that were going on, and every now and then he would text me. But he ran, those guys ran everything from, and with all the COVID protocols, we're temperature testing. We got sheets every day. The bus, you have a bus seating chart, a mask, all those things. So I'm really, really fortunate. I have a tremendous staff. So I couldn't ask for a better staff. Great guys, great teachers of the game, and they're great for young men. So they're a huge part of what we do and what we're about.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I mean, you see all the behind the scenes work that goes into building that winning culture, and I think people tend to forget that how much the assistants, coaches play that kind of pivotal play that a role and again with the players and with breaking down film. There's so many components that go into it. But I didn't want to forget also, I was reading another prestigious honor, Coach Milich, that I don't know if it's taking place already, being inducted into the New Jersey Coaches Association Hall of Fame. Can you talk about what that means to you personally, Coach Milich?
That probably means I've been doing this for 30 years. My baseball since 1988. I've done track and field, which some kids called it spring football because we did a lot of lifting and training for speed and things of that nature. But it was definitely an honor. It was not something I was looking forward to. It kind of caught me by surprise. But again, that's because I've had great people around me, great administration, great assistants, and great kids. So, and that's not just in football, but that's in all the sports that I coach. So, that was, I'd rather not talk about myself as much as players, but it was. I'm not going to tell you, it was disappointing. It was nice after so many years to kind of be recognized. For what we do on a day-to-day and a year basis.
No, that's a great. Hey, you're 2 years removed from an 8-2 season. I said named mid-state conference coach of the year. That was said a special season as well, Coach. And you talk about the quarterback position. You had to work with 2 quarterbacks that season because your starter went down. And Ryan, can you talk about what 2019 meant to you? I mean, how good of a year was that for Montgomery High School, Coach Milich?
That year was awesome. We expected to be pretty good. We had a lot of kids playing when they were younger, and but you got to go out and do it. And sometimes you got to kind of go through some growing pains, which we did going into that season, and but those guys turned it around. It was definitely, a really enjoyable season. We had a lot of close misses the year before, which a lot of people didn't realize. A lot of close games. We were at times we had the year before we had a freshman quarterback, we had a freshman running back in Benitez, and young guys, and we had a bunch of sophomores out there that probably were asked to do stuff that maybe they weren't ready to do, and just to watch those guys work so hard in that off season going into 2019. I mean, the weight room commitment. We had guys doing winter track, most of them just to do the sprint workouts to get faster.
Yeah.
You could just see the commitment from everyone, from the linemen to the receivers. I think it would have been really disappointing had we not had a real good season with all the effort and experience that we came back with that year. So that was definitely, something that we were proud of. I think we had won 7 straight games at some point.
Yeah.
Record. So, again, it was 1 week at a time. So that was definitely, our program needed it at that point after going sub 500 for a few years there. We needed to break out, and that year definitely kind of got us back to where we wanted to be.
Yeah, I mean, how good was that? I mean, to see that offense, I think I read the numbers. I think averaging 34 points per game. I mean, the fact that you were right up there, said, you looked at teams like Somerville and then Hillside. I think that was undefeated in 2019. Coach, I mean, how good was it to be at that, par at that level with those programs as well?
Again, we try not to compare ourselves with other programs. It's about. And I know sometimes it sounds like coach speak, but really I can't concern myself with Hillside and Somerville. They're great programs, and we got to take care of Montgomery. And so that's kind of what we focus on is us being the best. And one of the things too that we did that I'm pretty proud of, like when we got up on scores, a lot of times we brought in our JVs like in the third quarter, like midway. Mm-hmm. We weren't hacking on extra points, and we probably could have averaged over 40 easily, if we wanted to, but. 2 things come into, it's not even the sportsmanship part of it, but it's also, if I'm up and the game's comfortably in hand, if one of my starters gets hurt, that hurts us for next week.
Yeah.
That's a bad coaching decision. Also, it's a chance to get younger guys experience on a varsity stage in front of the student body under the lights, instead of the last 3 minutes of the game, where they're in mop-up time and, nobody's really paying attention. Half the student body is left. So, I felt like, that kind of set us up for the next year. Unfortunately, COVID hit, especially with our offensive line. We were able to get a lot of guys offensive line experience, when we were up by some points, keeping some of the skill guys around. But it allowed us to develop some guys. And I think that's what you always want to do, whether you're winning by a lot or if you're losing by a lot. You want to you want to keep people healthy and you want to bring in other guys to get experience. And so that was kind of, the way we looked at that year was, let's keep ourselves healthy and let's get other guys experience hopefully for next year. Or if somebody goes down, they have to step into that situation and they've been there before.
That's true. I wanted to ask you, before we came in there, you talked about building this program, again, from the scratch. I mean, from freshman to JV, eventually to varsity. I'm wondering, I was looking at some of the numbers. I think you had 2 straight 2-win seasons, 3 losing seasons in a row. I'm wondering during those downtimes, during those years when, things were looking, pretty bleak, but what did you learn from those years? And now eventually, being able to come full circle and start, again, building that winning programming culture. I was just curious about that, Coach Milich.
Yeah, it was a little bit different too, like recently, is we really don't have a feeder program. There's nothing that feeds us.
Yeah.
We don't have a Pop Warner. We don't have a PAL,
Mm-hmm.
We did back then. So we knew, like, we were a smaller school when we first started. So, recently when you're sitting there and you have a couple 2-win seasons and, a lot what people didn't see in those seasons too was like, Ryan Fuhrer, starting quarterback, went down to 1 year. We expected to be a playoff team before, 2018. We had a lot of young kids. We had injuries. Opening night, my 2 starting running backs were gone. My quarterback was gone the next week. That's a lot, and so your whole offense is basically gone to start the season. And we had a lot of close games, so that was, to me, you look at it that way, but, people from the outside, you are what you are, what your record says you are, which is the old Bill Parcells.
Yeah.
But, you got to be realistic and see what's going on and realize, hey, there's some talented kids here. But the other part was we just didn't have a feeder system. So you could sit there and say, sometimes, you can't always predict everything off the Pop Warner or your youth program, but at least you're getting numbers. Yeah. You're getting kids who played before. Now we're out there recruiting kids and selling them on an idea who've never played football before. And quite frankly, this year we have 17 freshmen because I could not get down to the middle school due to COVID. Normally I go down there a couple times a year. I'm down at the lunch. I'm signing up 8th graders, talking to them. Sometimes maybe bringing some of our older guys down.
Yeah.
Signing up 7th graders too, who might be interested. So I always kind of had a pipeline. So when you don't have that pipeline going, you get worried about it. You're like, is this where it starts drying up? I'm just talking to some of the other schools. How many freshmen you got? One school has 48, another one has 24, 20, 32. We got 16 right now in camp. We're gonna have another one, and hopefully we'll get a couple more kids. But it was the idea that we could not reach out to kids. You can send all the emails you want, to the kids, to the parents. You might have a mother who doesn't want them to play, delete, so never even get to it. So yeah, it was. You worry, but you just keep working hard. I knew we had a good staff, and I knew we had a core group of kids coming up that were going to be. They were football kids. Everything came football first, and they played the other sports. And I'm a big, play as many sports as you can, but sometimes we would have, you look at it, we might have lacrosse kids first, we might have a basketball kid or baseball kid first. Football's on the back burner. Well, it's a tough sport to win in if football becomes the back burner for your athletes. And that 2019 year, even 2018 going in, we had a lot of football first kids, and here the injuries. We had 3 ACLs. I mean, it was a lot of fluky things, and kind of set us behind, and but set up 2019. I really thought we would have had 2 good years in a row, and then 2020 we thought we were going to have a real good year, and with the COVID hit and some other things, and so now we look forward to now.
Yeah. Hey, no, definitely. Just have a couple more, Kente, for the time, Coach Milich. I don't want to forget, hey, you're just not a teacher on the field. You're a teacher off the field. You're a social studies teacher at Montgomery High School. Been doing that since 2002, I believe.
Yes.
Also, the administration as well. Don't want to forget, AD, I think Chris Gundy, Principal Paul. I hope maybe you can pronounce, you can pronounce. Okay. If you want to just talk about the administration, the support from them, just as far as being a teacher as well there at Montgomery High School.
Yeah, what's really interesting, when we started that program back in 2000, our principal, Paul Popovich, when we started the program, he was our defensive coordinator.
Okay.
Chris Grundy, who was our boys basketball coach, when he was on our staff, when he first started out, and then he stopped to focus on being the head, once he was named the head boys basketball coach.
Yeah.
Our upper middle school principal, Corey Delgado, was my freshman coach for many years. So a lot of the administration I coached with, and it was funny because I was their boss, and now they're all my bosses. It's a very supportive administration. We have, I can't say enough about our admin for all the years that I've been here.
Hey, talk about the support, of course, from the student body, the town of Skillman, and then just what is it like on a Friday night lights, at Montgomery High School with the facilities there with the football field, Coach Milich?
Yeah, it's a town almost shuts down. We're not a ton to do in the town. You'd probably drive through it, pretty quickly down 206 or 601. But Friday nights, it's awesome. If the weather's good and we're good, that place is packed. It's a phenomenal atmosphere. Like I tell our guys, you want a great atmosphere, you guys got to go out there and win. We got to make a reason for the people to pay to come watch us play. So, but it can be an awesome atmosphere. We get tremendous support there.
It's great. It's such a fascinating background that you have, Coach Milich. And when I look at back, of course, you attended Somerville High School and then coached there, of course, on the football team. But then at the same time, I think later on you were running, of course, the Montgomery High School baseball team as well. And I had to ask you about that, just, between both schools, but also working, with, coaching another sport as well. Just, what comes to your mind when you think back to those times, Coach Milich?
I was a young man with a lot of energy back then. The interesting thing was when I was coaching football at Somerville, but I was the head baseball coach at Montgomery.
Yeah.
And in the spring, I'd be coaching against the kids that I was, that were my players in the fall. It was interesting. It was funny. We would have a lot of jokes and bust each other's chops and stuff like that. And But yeah, no, it was, baseball allowed me to become the football coach in Montgomery.
Yeah.
If not successful in baseball, they probably wouldn't have entrusted me with football. Plus, I was the only person really with football experience. I'd been coaching at Summer all those years, and
Yeah.
when he at the time, Bernie Dembski, asked me, would I be interested? And he's like, "You'll probably never win here." I'm like, "Absolutely, I'm interested." When do you get, how often do you get a chance to start a program from scratch, from like
Yeah.
your imagination? A lot of times you go and you take over a program. It has its traditions. It has
Yeah.
its, and that's awesome too. But when you kind of start something from scratch, um, it's more personal, maybe to me. The
Yeah.
fact that it's been all, I've been the only head coach that they've ever known for football. So, and all these guys that I'm coaching now, none of them were born, when I first started the program. So,
Yeah.
and some now I'm starting to coach some of the children of the fathers I even had at Somerville and places like that, so means I've been around for a while.
Yeah. You talked about tradition. What does that Cougars jersey mean, to you? I had to ask you about that, Coach Milich. It's important, is that tradition in that jersey, and then of course the helmet too. What does that mean?
To
Yeah.
me, interesting thing.
Yeah.
When I first got to Montgomery for baseball, the first question everybody had, when I go around, and especially, and again for football, going to
Yeah.
football, and I always, I always wear Montgomery gear.
Yeah.
It's, I try to create a brand. When I first
Hmm.
got, like, where's Montgomery at? Well, you have to sit there and say, it's right next to Princeton. We're South Somerset County. We had Hillsborough.
Yeah.
And over the years, you know, it stopped being, where's Montgomery? Now they kind of knew where it was. And I mean, for
Yeah.
about 5, 6, 7 years, it was, hey, we're right next to Princeton. And I think now when we talk about Montgomery, people know what Montgomery is. They know about us from all sports. But when I was first there, it was, I always wore Montgomery pullovers, with any clinics I went to, wherever, if it wasn't in football season at Somerville, I was wearing Montgomery gear outside of that, trying to create that brand, which we did for baseball. And then, with football, same thing. That was a big question, especially coming up to Bergen County and doing the old clinics up there with, with Tony Carthage was running it, and Mike Miello, and just going up there, and people were like, "Where's Montgomery? We just started the program. Where's that at?"
Yeah.
And so to me, like, it's not just the jersey, but it's just the program itself. People now know where we're at, and college coaches come through all the time now. We've had some real good players over the years. I think we've placed over 70, some 80 kids in college,
Yeah.
which for a town that's really, quote unquote, not supposed to be a football town. It's supposed to be more of a soccer town or something, or lacrosse town. But we've done pretty well with regard to that. And I think the biggest thing is we still had the same tradition. So when kids come back, or they're young men now, they come back sometimes to visit. They kind of see the same stuff, that they saw when they were young men, the same age. So sometimes guys are coming 20 years later, and besides me being older, they see the same guy on the sideline. They see the same tradition, pretty much the same pregame speeches as far as the fire and brimstone and that type of thing. So
Yeah.
I think our Cougar family, if you will, like, people have pride. It meant something to them, and that's what means the most to me. Like, if kids can go, and I don't care how many touchdowns they score, whether they play in college or not, if they can have a special spot in their heart for it, like, hey, I had a good time there. I met a lot of good friends. I got pushed. I learned a lot of life lessons. It wasn't always easy. It taught me how to get through adversity. Not everything rolled my way. I toughened up mentally. I persevered. It's helped me in life. I've had one kid, hey, he's not even a kid anymore because I've never gotten late after, running me for being late to practice, suspending me, this and that. He goes, now I just hear your voice yelling, like, get up. But, those are some of the funny stories. But
Yeah.
that's, to me, it's the people that have come through the program. That's probably the most important thing to me, and just a lot that come back and stay in touch. That's the thing I enjoy the most.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's great. I don't want to forget also, you went to Rutgers University, preferred walk on. I know your career didn't end the way you wanted to, your football career, but can you talk about your time there, as a Scarlet Knight?
Yeah, I went on, I was a walk on, I had a back injury. You realize at a certain point, two things happen when you get to a certain point.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you start getting to level and you're like, you start looking at some other guys, right? And I was a tight end, and
Mhm.
kid in my class, James Jenkins, ended up playing in the NFL for 10 years, won a Super Bowl with the Washington Redskins, and you start realizing, okay, as the pond gets bigger, you go from the pond to the lake to the ocean.
Yeah.
You start, if you're realistic about, you can work hard, but you start getting more realistic. Like, that's coming easier to that person. That person that I got to really struggle to do well, and that person doesn't have to do that part of the game as much time, and they can focus on other things.
Yeah.
When you get hurt, I think one of the frustrating things is, as an athlete, you always want to, you always believe you can get better and you can accomplish things. But when you get hurt and you can't do things you used to do,
Yeah.
that for me at that time, where the realization was, um, I can't do the game at the level that I want to do it anymore. And I think that's always the toughest for me. It happened when I was like 19, 20 years old. So
Yeah.
it happened early, and then, but I loved my time there. I mean, Dick
Yeah.
Anderson, the coach there. I met Kevin Carty, who was our wide receiver coach there, and for one spring too, Coach Flaherty, who was with the Giants for years, he was our tight ends coach. So I met a lot of
Yeah.
great coaches, a lot of great people there, and a lot of my teammates, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But I think you start learning things. You're not living at home, and you start seeing things more realistic and where your path might be better. And for me, I knew, like, football, it wasn't. I tried to make a comeback, and all the pain and everything that kind of went away after a year, after about 2 weeks in spring, and we weren't hitting each other as much as you would during the season. It would just come back, and I just say, life's too long. I'm not going to the NFL,
Yeah.
and there's some good people around me, and and you always have younger guys coming up who are good too. So
That's right.
it's probably at that point, it was best for me, for my health wise, to step away, so I wasn't crippled.
I'm wondering, after, of course, graduating from Rutgers, what, as far as, like, what your first, coaching job, and just how that all, turned out, like how that panned out as far as, getting, that first coaching job. I was just wondering about that, Coach Milich.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was coaching semi-pro baseball league, and I was kind of running it, and it started that in 1988. Then I became president like in 1990, 91.
Okay.
And so I was really, like, into baseball. And ironically, I was filming the Somerville football games. I was like the videographer.
Okay. Okay.
So I did in the fall, and I stuck around to see my younger brothers play and stuff. And then my high school coach says, "Do you ever think about coaching?" He was looking, and that's how it started. 92, I think, was the first fall that I got to coach at Somerville, and I was with him for 2 years, and then they had a turnover in staff, and Coach Carty came in, and I remember Coach Carty from Rutgers. I always liked him. He was, always such a personable guy and just a good man, and so I decided to stay with him, and the rest is his. He's been very helpful in my career, especially the
Yeah.
earlier stages. Taught me a lot of football. Taught me a lot of offensive football. Spent a lot of time after practice, sitting on a whiteboard, and just, you ask him a question, and he can sit there on a board on offense and talk for hours, and
Yeah.
sit there. I was a young man, and I had time, so for him, instead of going home to his wife and his kids who he was coaching, he'd sit there an extra hour with me, and he would do that for many years and give me some
Yeah.
assignments, and, look up some things, some books, and so that was very great. And that's kind of, and I still was doing baseball in the summer, and then when the Montgomery baseball position opened up, I did well coaching at football in a high school setting, and
Yeah.
that's how I got the job. And the AD there was my former high school football coach, who was an assistant at the time. So that's how the connection came. And now I have Sean Carty, who I coach. He's now my offensive coordinator. So some people like joke around and say it's like Somerville South down there. We're south of Somerville. Got a couple of guys there. So, but that's how that all started. And then, when the football opportunity came about, and then that's how I got into the building. I went from business to, like, hey, I'm going to coach football. I need to be in the building because those college coaches come through, and for me to
Yeah.
do justice to these kids, I got to be there. I can't have somebody
Yeah.
else doing my job, if you will. So
That's true. Yeah. Can't forget how important that role of being a student athlete is as well. You might have answered this question before, Coach Milich, but for you, what makes the game of football, so special? Like coaching it, I had to ask you that.
I just, you know what? It's the one sport, okay,
Yeah.
that everybody can play. Like you get people from everywhere. From you get, rich kids, poor kids, different religions, everything. Sometimes we joke around. I'm not gonna name the sports, but some sports are kind of specific. You have to have money, this and that. I think football, what makes football unique is number one, you come into the program, you don't have to pay for bats and sticks and all, you just got to get cleats, right? And
Yeah.
and it takes kids who'd never be together. Like to me, when you're in gym class when you're younger, your athletic kids, they get picked first, and then you have some of those kids who aren't picked, and well, football, you take the thing that I love the most is you take those kids that are the offensive linemen and probably were never picked first or any of that stuff growing up, and now those real cool kids, the athletic kids, they can't do anything unless those other kids block for them up. You know what I mean? Kids to see their self-esteem, they start lifting, they start transforming their body.
Yeah.
They become an essential part. Now you got that kid, maybe the quarterback, who maybe didn't talk to the kid in 5th grade or 6th grade. Now, hey, they're hanging out. Like, they know, like, it has a role for everybody. You can be that short kid, okay, the small kid. Oh, maybe you can kick. Maybe you kick the game-winning field goal or extra point for us. Everyone thinks of football, you got to be big, big, big. No, you don't. It takes a lot of different body types, but I just think it brings everybody under one roof, and it's a physical sport. It's a mentally challenging sport, and we all kind of go through it together. And I think if the world could be like a football locker room, we'd all it'd be a much better place. And I think football challenges you all the time. You cheat in football and get away with it. You can get away with not working out in some other sports. You won't be as good, but you can get away with football. Will expose you, right? Everyone looks for the weak link. Sometimes that's how life is, right? And so it forces you not to be the weak link. It forces you to get off your rear end, not just once, but multiple times. And you're going to fail multiple times. And what kind of person are you going to be? And hopefully you can take those lessons from that football field when your career is done and when you go into real life. So you lose your job, but you have a family, and you got to, what do you do? Sulk and pout the whole time, quit? No, you got to go get another job. You got to go find, you got to do something. It might be, you got to get 2 other jobs to equal the pay that you had before, because that's what you have to do. You might be the kid who wants to play quarterback and you don't get the position. Now you go play another position to be a part of the team and help, from that standpoint. Maybe you play now, maybe you're going to play some defensive back, and maybe you're going to play some tight end or something, like now you're playing 2 positions to kind of equal that one big spot at quarterback. So I think that's what I love about football. I think it brings a lot of value. It challenges people, because where do we challenge? We don't challenge them in the classroom. If a kid doesn't do well, hey, they do retests, this and that, right? We're always coddling kids. I think football is a safer arena. Like if something goes wrong, you got to step up. It's preached that you got to step up, right? You got coaches pushing you and stuff. So I think, where can you challenge kids where they're going to see failure, but they can also see success, and understand that failure is not permanent, unless you make it permanent. We need a lot of resiliency, and I think football teaches that more than any other sport, because we're snapping the ball every 40 seconds or so, and there's going to be positives, there's going to be negatives, right? So if you're more on the positive, you're probably going to win, right? So if you're doing the right thing, you cause a penalty. Hey, you break a law in the world and you get arrested, whatever. There's a penalty for that. You hold on a play, there's a penalty for a flag. So you're hoping it's a little microcosm of what the world is, and people learn lessons. And the biggest thing to me is perseverance, right? And not giving up. So I think that's what football, and you do it in front of the biggest crowds, right? So you're out there in front of your your family, your girlfriend, your student body, your friends and stuff like that. So, you got to go out there and get the job. And there's times you're not going to look good, but that's all right. Get right back up and get it done. So that's what I love about football. I think it's the last sport that really brings everybody together. It brings the whole community together, even people in the right. We got the band playing, right? So we got the band there. We got, we have the cheerleaders, the dance team. We've got the student body. We have people around town. Sometimes the mayor. We've had the mayor come and other people like that. And so I think it's the one sport that can unite a community. And that locker room to me is sacred ground. You got to run it the right way. Can't have bullying and all that nonsense. But it's a place where you get kids from. Nobody cares who your parent. When you're in that locker room, nobody cares who mom or dad is. Nobody cares what your religion is. Nobody cares your skin color, or your ethnicity. You're a teammate, right? And you don't see somebody that's a teammate. You keep the area clean, right? You keep that area clean because it's your home. Even though you're not related to these people, it's your home. And so that's the thing I love about football. I think most other locker rooms, you're in there and you're out really quick. You spend a lot of time in that locker room when you're playing football. Just even changing takes a while, right? Putting on and sometimes if the locker rooms run great, that might be some of the best memories for the players is, some of those days in the locker room, right? Some funny things and guys just having a good time. So that's a long-winded answer, but
well said, well put, Coach. I mean, you said you bring the knowledge to the table and the experience. You talked about family. I don't want to forget, the support you received from your family. Said through this, coaching journey.
Yeah, my wife Susan has been phenomenal. We've been married over 25 years. And my son and daughter are out of high school and everything like that. But my family knows, that was kind of one of the agreements of not coaching college football because they wanted stability, and I get to do what I love to do. And I'm home at the end of the night. Each night I'm home, and and sometimes I'm home later. But my wife has been phenomenal, like for all the coaching I do, and she's very supportive of it and very understanding. And so are my kids. Some of it I've coached my son, for baseball and basketball when he was in 5th grade, going through, through 8th grade and stuff like that. But my wife is awesome with regard to that. She brought stability to the household for the kids, and sometimes they joke that it was a single parent household at times when you got those late. I wish we had Zoom 20 years ago. From home, right? We were a family. We're at the field house or in a lot, the coach's office. Getting done at 10:30. By the time you drive home and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think Zoom might have saved a lot of other marriages. As long staff meetings, you can do them at home, and do that with the players. Like when we review film, a lot of times. After you go home, COVID kind of forced some better things to happen in all honesty.
That's right.
It's forced us to do some other things that, maybe we didn't do in the past because we're so worried if we didn't do something, we wouldn't be successful. And I think COVID kind of showed that it's not always the case. Certain things you thought were so like non-negotiable, and they couldn't be non-negotiable with COVID, and they like kind of survived. Tim Gashu of Shawnee, they had a COVID situation last year. They went up to Sparta, and Sparta's very good, Shawnee's very good, but Shawnee's like, we didn't see any tape of them except for the 2-hour ride up there. Really not prepared because of the COVID. We just picked each other. They probably had their best offensive game, so they're like, does that come back to the Allen Iverson? We talking about practice? They scored the most points, and the same probably could be said for Sparta. Both teams scored a bunch, so like where we thought, if I don't get this, we'd almost drive ourselves neurotic over things. If I don't have this, if I don't break this down, it's the end of the world, and we have no chance. And that certainly wasn't the case. And I think we all learned that with COVID. But I wish we had Zoom years ago. It would have been nicer to be at home, hit a button, go upstairs and be there with the family, or at least your family knows you're there.
That's true.
Working. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. Hey, questions. I'm trying to zero on what the final question is, but I think I always probably try to end it with this: what your advice is to, of course, younger kids and players, and then even guys who want to break, people who want to break into the coaching ranks as well, and be hopefully, just as successful as Coach Milich one day. What's your message?
You have to have a passion about whatever you do, not just coaching, but find something that doesn't feel like work, and coaching does not feel like work. For me, even teaching does not feel like work. Yeah, we have to do certain things, but if you can find something that you truly enjoy, I've enjoyed coaching, and football has opened up a lot of opportunities for me. But I enjoyed coaching track. I enjoyed coaching baseball. I still do. The kids. It's the idea of taking a kid from this level and taking them, a higher level. If you can convince a kid to do things that maybe they didn't think they could do. But I think you have to have a passion. Don't get into this if you're all about the paycheck. It can't be about you. Okay. It's about, it's a journey, and it's about the kids. And, if you're sitting there and it's all about you and your record and you're worried about that stuff, you're really not helping. At the end of the day, you're not there for the kids. And sometimes we'll get guys that it's all about them, and you try to, we hope we weed those guys out as soon as possible out of the profession. Get guys that it's about the kids, and at the end of the day, like I always tell youth coaches, when you've been coaching that kid, like Sunil, if you're coaching a kid back in 6th grade, rec basketball, whatever, and now that kid's a junior or senior and he sees you and he's like, hey, coach, how you doing? You did a good job with that kid, regardless what the record was or anything like that. The relationship you established with that kid, it wasn't about you. That kid had a good time, and he's like, hey, coach. Now, if he walks by you, acts like he doesn't know you, what'd you do? Obviously you didn't make an impact. So I would say, you're there for the kids, and we're fortunate, like in Jersey, and a lot of the head coaches I know, we've got some great guys about the kids. And, I think that's what I love about my football staff. It's always about the kids. If you're about yourself to promote yourself, you won't last, a full season with us. And that's my advice to younger guys. Just have a passion for it. It's not about you. If you take care of the kids, right, and it's about them, things, at the end of the road, 30 years down the road, whatever, you'll be rewarded down the road. It's about them. You're going to be rewarded better than any coach of the year or any record you might have at the end of the day. So that would be my advice. Have a passion for it, and it's about the kids first.
Yeah. Okay, Coach Milich, always end. I said, here's the platform. You got the last word. If there's anything I've left out here, I don't know. I almost admitted. Said also you were the vice president, I believe, the New Jersey Football Coaches Association. That was another. Said big responsibility as well.
I'm actually the president. Just started in July.
Oh, congratulations. Okay, so here we are. I'm glad I got that in right here. So if you want to talk about that, Coach Milich.
Well, John Jacob, our commissioner, he's done a phenomenal job. I just, as president, my job is to run the meetings and support him as much as possible. Get information out to any coach that might have a question or anything like that. Been part of the executive committee, but I think, what we've been doing with our executive committee and working, with the NJSIA, obviously we have a state championship starting next year. We really revamped a lot of things that had failed in years past. And I think, our executive committee and John Jacob in particular, and I know, Jake's and he done a phenomenal job really to take our organization to another level. And, like I told him as the president, I'm there to support him, and I don't want to mess anything up, like it was and we were having a great effect on, high school football and the NJSIA relies on our association, which is great. We're working in a partnership, and hopefully we can continue that. And if I can help any coaches or any program, we just want to make football better for the state of New Jersey. So that's my main goal there.
Yeah, I mean, to see how far New Jersey football is coming. We talk about the state championship games, bowl championships at MetLife Stadium, SHI Stadium on the campus of Rutgers University. Even in the past years, of course, even at Kane University and other places. It's great to see, you look at the other states. Of course, there's Florida, there's Texas, California, but New Jersey is right up there, Coach Milich.
Yeah, for a little state, we've got some great football players and some great coaching in the state. I remember when I first started, you could out-coach some teams. And you're like, all right, well, you can't do that anymore. Especially, everybody, all these coaches are working. These head coaches, their assistants. I saw that change in the last, 25 years.
Yeah.
Where you felt like you had an advantage going in, and you no longer have that advantage in most cases. And so that's kind of, I think it's better for the players. Makes it safer. It also puts them in a better position. But yeah, I think we've seen our association just get so much better. Like the coaching has gotten so much better. So yeah, those days of just we'll out scheme them. They might be better. Well, those days are gone. So you worry about getting out schemed them.
All right, Coach Milich, here it goes again. Last word. If there's anything I left out, you're more than.
I just want to thank you getting a chance to represent Montgomery High School. I know you guys, you're up there in North Jersey and stuff, but it's always a pleasure. Love going up to North Jersey, Bergen County. Some great people up there.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for inviting me on your show.
Hey, Coach Milich, again, an incredible honor and privilege, interviewing you, wishing you, the rest of the coaching staff and players at Montgomery High School and the varsity football team all the best in the 2021 season.
Thank you, Sunil.